All right, so we're going to get even deeper into the weeds here. Sunday, October 22nd, and we now have Israel going into Gaza for the first time. Well, not for the first time, but taking casualties for the first time inside of Gaza in their limited incursions ahead of their ground war, which they are pushing forward despite repeated warnings from basically everyone in the world. Let's not do this. Let's not provoke a wider war with Hezbollah, Iran, and Syria. But hey, they've been bombing Lebanon today. They've bombed Syria again, which hasn't even done anything. They've now hit the Syrian airport multiple times, which just is absurd. There's no excuse to even do this, but we're going to go ahead anyway, because apparently Israel can do no wrong, whatever they want. Okay, here we go. This is the start of a much wider conflict, I fear. All right, so as of 3:15 Eastern Time, Hamas has claimed to have repelled a brief Israeli ground incursion in what marks the first such reported direct ground fight between the two sides in Gaza. The Al-Qassam brigades announced its fighters destroyed 2 Israeli military bulldozers and a tank as part of an ambush amid the IDF's conducting limited incursions into the Strip. Quote, the soldiers of the Zionist force that fell into the Khan Yunis ambush left their vehicles and fled east of the fence on foot, the Hamas wing said on social media. The IDF, as expected, did not confirm the claims, saying only that the shots were fired at IDF soldiers operating west of the Gaza Strip security fence in the area of Kisufim. Instead, the IDF said only that an IDF tank was struck the terrorist cell who fired at the soldiers, but did confirm its forces were operating inside Gaza at the time of the incident. All right, here's the thing. Hamas is a terrorist organization, except for when you go inside of the territory that is, in fact, Gaza, which Israel readily admits they left that territory. So you're going into Hamas's territory and attacking them. They're not terrorists at that point. They're legitimate fighters. This is military combat back and forth. If your guys die, you don't get to claim they're terrorists. You invaded. The IDF appears to have begun taking casualties, and the major ground offensive has yet to begin. Importantly, an IDF statement cited in a fresh Times of Israel update appears to back Hamas's account of repelling the IDF tanks and bulldozers. A soldier was killed and 3 others were hurt on Sunday after Hamas attacked troops carrying out an operation on the western side of the Gaza border fence, meaning inside of Gaza. So near the southern community of Kisufim. The operation was part of the military searches for bodies of missing Israelis and to clear the area for Israel's upcoming ground offensive. The Israeli Defense Forces said that an anti-tank guided missile was fired at an Israeli tank and engineering vehicle, and troops responded by shelling a terror cell. Terror group Hamas claimed responsibility for the attack. Elsewhere, the IDF announced that it had conducted a rare airstrike inside the West Bank. Oh, now we're attacking the West Bank where Hamas has no control. It said its jet hits a mosque. Oh, so you targeted another mosque, which is a war crime, but cool. Allegedly used as a Hamas and Islamic Jihad terrorist compound in Jenin. Come on, man. Even Israel admits Hamas doesn't control the West Bank. Meanwhile, Israel has issued a formal apology to Egypt for inadvertently hitting an Egyptian border outpost, because now we're just bombing everywhere, which injured a number of Egyptian military border guards, Al Jazeera described. Shell fragments from an Israeli tank have hit an Egyptian border, injuring at least 7 people, including several Egyptian border guards, according to the militaries of both countries. The incident occurred late Sunday, with the Israeli military confirming that it accidentally hit the Egyptian position near the border with the Gaza Strips. I thought Israel made no mistakes. That's what you claimed all the time anyway, except when you let a whole bunch of Hamas fighters come in and kill thousands of people and have no defensive actions whatsoever. What I'm supposed to believe right now, by the way, is that Hamas is better prepared for an invasion than Israel, because Hamas was waiting and ready and killed an Israeli soldier when the Israelis tried to go into Gaza. But when Hamas stormed the Israeli border, they had nothing. They weren't ready at all to attack. Seriously? You want me to believe this? I don't. Israeli forces have struck the Rafah crossing area multiple times at this point, and Palestinian officials alleging it is an intentional act, which, yeah, they've bombed the border crossing, which is the only one, and they keep bombing it, and now they've killed Egyptians or injured them. So, the IDF carries out its threat to bomb the Al-Quds hospital. A major massacre occur The international community should not be silent in the face of Israel's threat to bomb our hospitals, the remaining amount of fuel. In Washington, U.S. Secretary of State, or Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin said that the U.S. is concerned about potential escalation in the Middle East. We should be, because they've now hit every country that borders them except for Jordan. And confirmed that the U.S. assets were deployed in the region to ensure troop safety. You know what would make our troops safe? Getting them out. Having no carrier strike groups in the region. Getting the 10,000 or so soldiers we have out of there. That would be what would keep them safe. We don't need to be in another war. If Israel wants to fight a war against all the Arab countries, let them. But they can do so on their own. We don't need to shed blood for them. We're concerned about potential escalation. In fact, what we're seeing is a prospect of a significant escalation of attacks on our troops and other people throughout the region. And because of that, we're going to do what's necessary to make sure that our troops are in a good position and they're protected, and that we have the ability to respond, he told ABC's This Week. All eyes continue to be on Israel's northern border, where the tit-for-tat strikes with Hezbollah continue to ramp up. And this is amazing because this was admitted to be started by the Israelis, who fired first, and Hezbollah responds, and then Israel responds like, "You can't bomb us. We are only allowed to bomb you." That doesn't work, okay? Just like in Syria, sooner or later, Syria is going to retaliate. And then what's Israel going to do? Claim it was unprovoked after you keep bombing them? What happens when Syrian air defenses shoot down an Israeli plane? Is Israel going to call that an act of war? We flew into your country to illegally bomb you, and you shot our aircraft down. How dare you? Like, seriously. We're reaching levels of insanity here. Spokesman for the Israeli Defense Force announced that over the weekend that Hezbollah had escalated its attacks against northern Israel, which risks dragging Lebanon into a war. You mean you're starting a war? President Benjamin Netanyahu on Sunday issued the same words in his own warning for Hezbollah, saying it must avoid making the mistake of its life by deciding to join the war in partnership with Hamas. Quote, if Hezbollah decides to enter the war, it will long for a second Lebanon war. End quote, Netanyahu said in comments made before a unit of elite commando forces in northern Israel. It will be making the mistake of its life. We will hit it with a force it cannot even imagine, and the meaning for it and the Lebanese state will be devastating. And what do you think they're going to do? Seriously, what do you think if you do that? What's Hezbollah's response? Should they just, do you think they're just going to sit there and take it, or are they going to let loose 50 to 100,000 rockets? And then when you have a whole bunch of dead Israelis, what are you going to do? Are you going to blame them and say it was their fault for you attacking them and they responded? I mean, what's the end game here? Just to try and provoke a massive war? Since the October 7th Hamas attack on southern Israel, there have been a handful of casualties on either side of the Lebanese border. In at least one instance so far, Hezbollah scored a direct hit on an IDF military vehicle, which likely resulted in Israeli troop deaths and injuries. The group backed by Iran uploaded a video to the internet in order to show off its advanced capabilities. Israel has in response sent artillery and missiles against Hezbollah positions, as well as against some residential areas of South Lebanon. I love that. They just bombed civilians. They straight up bombed civilians, and they admitted it. They showed video, and it turned out to be a lie. The IDF posted video of Gaza airstrikes and claimed that they were in Lebanon, and then they got a community notes fact check on it, which was hilarious. But they did admit that they bombed civilian infrastructure in Lebanon. I'm like, okay, so you just admitted that you blew up a civilian tower block, you killed civilians, and you think what? Your entire justification for everything you do is that Hamas killed civilians, but apparently you're allowed to kill civilians? I do not understand the logic behind this. Typically, if a broader conflict involving Lebanon opens up, Israel strikes Beirut, Rafik, Harry International Airport, the only commercial airport in Lebanon, as it did in 2006. Hawks within Israel and the U.S. want to use this to deliver a death blow to Hezbollah, which is by all accounts a more formidable and better armed force than Hamas in Gaza. The Guardian underscores the Israeli government is coming under growing pressure from the security establishment hawks to launch a preemptive strike on Hezbollah in Lebanon. That's just horrific to hear. Launch a preemptive war against an enemy that did not attack you, that stayed neutral in this. If Hezbollah wanted to jump into the fight, they would have done so already. They've stayed out of it, and Israel keeps trying to draw them in. And keep in mind, Hamas is a Sunni organization. Hezbollah is a Shiite militia. Iran is a Shiite nation. Sunnis consider Shiites to be heretics. The fact that the Shiites are willing to help the Sunnis out, which are their mortal enemies. If this were to if we were to war game this all the way out into the end, let's imagine that the Arabs all attack Israel and somehow they win and Israel just disappears, okay? The Sunnis would then turn their attention to attacking all the Shiites, whom they consider them heretics. They'll kill every last one of them. And Iran is fully aware of this. Lebanon is fully aware of this. They know that they're considered enemies of them. That's why they're not jumping in. That's why they're not rushing to do something, because they are fully aware. That's why nobody's going to take the Palestinians from Iran or Syria or Lebanon, because these are the only Shiite nations, and Yemen, and they're not going to tolerate having a bunch of Sunnis that will try and kill them. You know, they already have Sunni minorities that they have to deal with that every once in a while start violence within their own countries. You think they want more? No. Okay. Israel PM Netanyahu, a former member of Sahid Maktal, speaking to Israeli commandos near Lebanon. That's already what he said. Others want Israel to focus on Gaza in order to not get bogged down in a conflict that could overwhelm Israel's military. President Biden used his time in Tel Aviv on Wednesday and visits by top U.S. officials in the days before to urge the Israeli leadership not to risk such a preemptive strike on the Iran-backed militia. And Bibi ultimately cooled on the idea, which is good. Don't need to have more war. Still, Israel is clearly taking measures to prepare for a possible all-out fight on its northern border, at this point having evacuated dozens of communities which lie within 2 kilometers of the border. On Sunday, the defense minister confirmed that another 14 towns and villages have been told to evacuate, in addition to the 28 initially ordered to do so last week. According to the IDF and Defense Ministry, the 14 communities being added to the list, I'm not going to go through them because I can't pronounce half of them. An active battlefront, hostilities between Hezbollah and Israel ratcheted up a notch today. Tonight, the IDF hit back with the heaviest artillery shelling yet across parts of South Lebanon, with reports of an airstrike in Jezanin deeper into the interior. It's now an active battlefront. Wonderful news, right? Hezbollah has not only been using anti-tank missiles, but has rolled out with guided missiles amid ongoing fire exchange between both sides. Israel has lately stood accused of using controversial white phosphorus shells as well, which there's multiple videos of that in multiple locations. A broader war would likely bring in Iran and Israel into a direct clash, or in possibly Syria too. On Sunday, Israel attacked Damascus and Aleppo international airports for the 3rd time in, 10 or 15 days, something like that. The scenario becomes all the more dangerous given the presence of U.S. carrier strike groups in the region, and more recently some 6 Chinese warships in Mideast waters, watching the situation closely. And of course, Russia has long had a strong military presence in Syria, which is just, that's another reason why. I mean, that's why I say the Syrians have S-300 defenses. They can shoot down F-16s. They've chosen not to do so, but what happens when they do? What's going to be the response from the West then? Are we going to blame them? And then they didn't mention the Yemen thing, but apparently yesterday, this is what we're being told. We're being told that in Yemen, they launched cruise missiles at Israel, and that destroyers in the ocean shot the cruise missiles down, which makes no logical sense because it doesn't even work that way. Like they wouldn't, you have to intercept missiles. For them to intercept, they have to be going like this. You can't fire a missile and have it chase at the other missile. That doesn't work. This is absurd. I don't believe it. There's so much propaganda coming out of this, and we're just gearing up for more and more war, more dead people, and they kill, Gaza, in Gaza, if an Israeli was killed, well, that's now justification for every one Israeli. We got to kill at least 20 Palestinians. So now we have more reason to go in, fight more war, more death. Great for the military-industrial complex, though. This is wonderful for the defense industry. Nothing is better than war. So let's see how far this goes. It's going to be a fun week.